Hey folks, it's Andrew from Gemba Red, and today we're going to do some quick testing on the Idealite RL Pro 300. Now, I actually got this one from AliExpress. They also sell on Alibaba, but I found their store is called Advasun. There'll be a link in the description if you want to find it. Sometimes it's easier to shop on AliExpress, and the shipping costs are a little bit cheaper and more transparent. But this is their latest series. This is the Pro series, as opposed to we reviewed the Max series before. The Pro series claims to have 8 wavelengths, and it's got a lot more features and different adjustability, and it's got an app that you can control it with. So, you know, they're starting to pack in a lot of extra features, but I just want to cover some of the basics. But you can see we've got everything set up, so all we have to do is turn it on, which we don't have to reach for the panel anymore like barbarians. We can turn it on with an app. So we've got everything set up. We've got our Hopo Color spectroradiometer all set up at 12 inches away, and we'll just take the measurement. Okay, so we got 61 milliwatts per centimeter squared at 12 inches away, so that's a ton of power, very high powered unit even at 12 inches away, so you're getting plenty of intensity. Remember, most full body red light therapy studies use on average about 28 milliwatts per centimeter squared, so panels, commercial panels, are twice as powerful as what's been clinically studied on humans. So if you want to be a human experiment and use such high intensities, then that's fine, but I would recommend cutting the brightness settings and use those brightness settings to cut it in half and go with that and see if that works. That should work for most people and be very comfortable and a good experience. So rather than going through each wavelength one by one, we'll just rapid fire. We see one little peak that represents the 630, one peak that represents 650, one peak that's around 670. And in the near infrared, we've got one peak for 810, another peak for 830, and then this kind of side peak here is for 850, so those check out. And then we've got a peak around 1050 for what they claim is 1060, but it's actually closer to 1050. So you get a little peak over here. Now, the odd thing about this spectrum is the very high peaks of near infrared relative to the lower peaks of red. So this means you're getting proportionally a lot more near infrared than red. It's not balanced like most panels on the market are pretty balanced, like mostly 50-50, 50% red, 50% near infrared. But this spectrum indicates that there's a lot more near infrared than red. So I downloaded this spectrum onto my computer so I can analyze the percentages of the red to the near infrared. So I'll be putting that on the screen now. So what it shows is that only 13% of that intensity is red, 71% of that intensity is the near infrared in the 800s, and then 16% is the near infrared around 1050. So you're getting significantly more near infrared than red. Red is only at 13%. So if we want to break this down with simple numbers, if we're getting 60 milliwatts per centimeter squared at 12 inches away, then only 13% of that is red. So that means there's only about 8 milliwatts per centimeter squared of red. There's about 42 or 43 milliwatts per centimeter squared of the near infrared in the 800s. And there's about 9.6 milliwatts per centimeter squared in the 1050s range, which is pretty good for a proportion of 1050. So that's an interesting ratio of red to near infrared. That's an important consideration. If you're shopping for this, you're getting a lot more near infrared. Some people might like that. And those ratios hold mostly true even when you do the individual settings. So if I only had the red mode, then that's all you'd be getting at 12 inches away. You'd only be getting like 8 milliwatts per centimeter squared at 12 inches away. Even if you have it set 100% red, then it doesn't really compensate. So I don't know if that's intentional by Idealite, if they even know this is happening, or if it's some sort of fluke with how the wiring and the drivers are working. But again, you're still getting a lot of power even at 12 inches away, but it's just a different ratio than what people usually expect from panels. And interestingly, I feel less heat from this panel at 60 milliwatts per centimeter squared as opposed to other panels that have more red in their 60 milliwatts per centimeter squared. That's because near infrared is actually less heating than red. So contrary to the popular myth that near infrared causes more heat than red, it's actually the opposite. The near infrared, especially in the low 800s, 800 to 850, and maybe around 1050, those are the least heating wavelengths in the entire sunlight spectrum. And so it is a good idea that if you want to tolerate higher intensities, you use more near infrared and less red to produce less heat. But I don't want to give them too much credit that was their intention. It was probably accidental. And of course, we want to check the EMF. So we've got a magnetic field meter here. here, an electric field meter here. We can see there's practically no change. Maybe there's very slight milligauss increase when we turn it on, but if you're 12 inches away or more, then you're very far outside of the electric and magnetic field, so you're very good. Generally, the electric fields is not an issue because the metal panels are almost always grounded. And of course, ironically, because they have app and Bluetooth control, so that means they are intentionally emitting some radio frequencies for communications to your device. So that means there is some intentional EMFs being emitted to control the device. So if you care about that, you don't want a smart device or an Internet of Things type device. You probably want a more basic unit, or find out how to disable those types of features and disable the Bluetooth or Wi-Fi modules. I'm not going to get into reviewing the pulsing. That's mostly optional. They do have a blue light switch here, but I don't think it actually has any blue light. You can go to the scene mode, and they have all these different options for different, settings. These are truly placebo buttons if you want to play around with them. This one makes your waist skinnier. This one makes your face kind of shiny. This one makes your muscles real big. This one pops your bones. This one makes you fall asleep. This one you get a free dog. And this one is universal, that cures everything. So you probably just want to use universal because that just cures everything. So if you want to play around with the placebo buttons, that's fine. Now, obviously, I know the intention, if you set it to skin, they set it to 10 minutes, and ideally they turn down the near infrared and have more red. But again, with this one, with the disproportionate near infrared, you can't even trust it. So again, just, I would manually choose my settings and not trust all these placebo buttons. But otherwise, it's a good unit. Just use it with the basic features in mind. You can just turn it on, use it at a reasonable intensity for a reasonable amount of time, and you get some good benefits. Thanks for tuning in.